Hello, Joey here. Joey for Star Trek here. For I have almost a video reaction to something by Wild Bill for America. So Joey for Star Trek here will respond. And, well, in this he seemed to be disrespectful to one of the world's greatest religions, Star Trek. Well, but at least he wasn't disrespecting Ghostbusters.
The original video clip where I responded to Wild Bill's video, well, it ended up being over 50 minutes long. Basically because I ended up ranting about how stupid Wild Bill's video was. And well, my rant, I stand by it. It was correct. It's a little bit longer than I would like. It does go on a little bit too long. So expect this to be heavily edited for time.
Phaser set to stun. There will be a Star Trek joke at the end. Hello, Joey here, and welcome to my personal space. Space and time are on my mind because I see something about Star Trek on the internet. It's about Star Trek. In fact, Star Trek Atheists. So I put on my Star Trek shirt. NX-01, my favorite starship. Alright, so what is this guy, Wild Bill for America? What could he have to say about Star Trek? Alright, what are we going to see here?
Hello everybody, Wild Bill for America here. Danny wrote me a note saying, religion is a substitute for a real understanding of the universe. It's designed to console those who want a comforting celestial father who will keep them alive after they die. I accept evidence and don't have enough faith to believe in fairy tales such as God.
Okay, so somebody sent him a letter and they analyzed religion as what they believed to be something made up to make people comfortable. Well, personally I think it was also modified to control people, but you know, that's a pretty good description of it, and Wild Bill is going to give his thoughts on this, and somehow it has something to do with Star Trek Atheists. This guy, Wild Bill, who's dressed up with a cowboy hat.
Well, Danny's YouTube picture is a Star Trek badge, so I have a...
Oh boy, Star Trek badge! I have one of those in the other room. Alright, so what about his Star Trek badge?
Pretty good idea where Danny gets his real understanding of the universe.
Okay, let's move along.
But Danny's note was one of the few that had no spelling or punctuation errors. It's sad that those are so rare that they stand out.
Well, he didn't have any typos. Wild William here seems to, that really stands out for him. Okay. Alright, but anyway, alright.
Anyway, Danny, you don't believe in God, so let me ask you this. Where exactly have you looked? Did you look as far as Montana?
He said what? Are we supposed to find God in Montana, or somewhere just beyond Montana? Has God been hanging out in Montana? Okay, and anyway.
I doubt it, and I'm quite certain that you've never looked behind Venus or Jupiter.
Is this guy indicating he's been peeking around behind Venus and Jupiter? Is he saying that God is hiding behind Venus and Jupiter?
Is it possible that in the vast expanse of the universe that an all-powerful being could exist that cannot be detected even with warp drive and sensors?
Nobody really has warp drive. We do have sensors, and in the broadest sense, or even our eyes could be considered sensors. So we're talking about all-powerful beings.
You say that you accept evidence? Really? I find that hard to believe. We have eyewitness accounts of the life of Jesus Christ that would...
Holy crap! How old are those people? Back when, you know, a group of people decided to use religion to set up this time scale. And this year is, if I'm correct, 2014, 2014. So that time scale was set up around the birth of Jesus, Jesus Christ, to be precise, which Jesus I'm talking about. So that would be like 2,000 years ago, a little bit more. In fact, after they came up with that time scale, that they decided he actually must have been born earlier than the time scale that they created based on his birth indicated. So it was something like 4 BC, although I've heard some people's estimates of something like 30 BC. Eyewitness accounts? No.
Stand up in any court of law. We have
What? Oh, Wild Will. Wacky Will. What are we talking about anyway, Wacky Will? Alright, let's see.
archaeological evidence supporting just about everything in the Bible.
Actually, there's a lot of statements that would contradict that by serious people. Okay.
And we have historical evidence that Jesus Christ impacted the world more powerfully than any other man.
That could be true! Think of all the holy wars! Do you think he'd really be happy about all the things that were done in his name?
Ever. He actually split history. Even those who...
He split history? Is that like a two timelines thing? Is he a time traveler? He split it. Okay.
don't believe in him sign their years as either BC or AD.
In fact, not everybody signs the year AD or BC. I myself kind of like BCE for, you know, what he would call BC. And for AD, I usually put CE, which CE, depending on who you ask, either stands for Contemporary Era or Common Era. And I'm okay with either of those, and they make sense. I mean, yeah, I mean, some people use the Hebrew calendar. There's other calendars, you know. Okay, but anyway, let's just see what this person, Silly Bill, he seems to be getting a little concerning here, but let's continue along.
The resurrection of Jesus Christ was documented by both Jewish and Roman writers. So, what evidence are you waiting for?
A lot of writers, you know, made stuff up, and Wild Willie, you're not impressing me with anything. You're concerning me. You're talking about the stories that a lot of people disbelieve for good reasons, and even the people who choose to believe them. I mean, can't say that it's absolutely certainly documented. Not appear to sound rational.
I suspect that you're in the same boat as millions of other people. You don't believe because you don't want to believe.
Well, that is an interesting thought. I've always wondered why people want to believe. Doesn't the truth matter? If somebody is lying or bullshitting me, to me that's an offense. Almost a little bit offensive, Mr. Wacky Will. You're talking about believing, but you seem to have no interest in truth.
The existence of God interferes with their pursuits of illicit pleasures. Many who hold those kinds of belief tend to worship at the altar of orgasms.
Ooh, orgasms! Mr. Wild Bill, are you coming on to me? Wow, orgasms.
Pursuit of pleasure is their reason to live, and damn anything that gets in the way of orgasms, anytime, anywhere, and with
I don't hear a no.
anybody. The existence of God would mean accountability to him, so many simply shove that possibility aside and try to convince themselves that they are too intelligent to believe such things.
Too intelligent to believe such things. Well, now we get to something real here. He's basically saying, well, he's bringing up people wanting to have sex and people being ashamed of sex. Well, that's actually something burnt into culture. Religion, they played a pretty damn big role in that, didn't they? completely secular morals would be separate from that when you're not harming anybody. It would come down to things like you should be ashamed of hurting people. You should be ashamed of mistreating people. You should be ashamed of lying to people. Sex wouldn't come into that. You know, it's not really saying no to religion that makes you consequence-free. How often have you seen people do horrible things? And like, I'm okay, I repented, you know, I go to church, I'm a good church-going guy. Many people who feel guilty about things want to believe in the space daddy so he can make everything okay. So they can say sorry. And if the space daddy forgives them, to hell with reality. Now, as for being too smart to believe in that, given all the holes in his logic to argue the intelligence of this, I'm thinking that Mr. Wild Woody here, and I don't mean the Sega CD character, or the character from the Sega CD game, Mr. Wild Woody here, Mr. Wacky Bill, Mr. Silly Will, he might be too stupid to actually debate. There was a good quote, not in Star Trek, I believe it was Tiny Toons, where somebody turned and said, "You can't argue with that, it's too stupid."
And that is absolutely impossible for a God to exist in the universe without them knowing about it.
Actually, that's actually what he's saying. He's saying that you should all know about the God in the universe. That should be obvious to you.
All right, to interject something a little bit quicker than my original response because of, you know, how long it went on. You cannot rationally expect to just spout some mythology and expect everybody to believe it as real. That is insane. Granted, culture had been built around it. It's been imposed on culture. You know, it brought about the Dark Ages. But you cannot expect other people to buy this. It's going to wear off. Culture's going to move beyond this. People will move beyond this. And the fact that you seem so sure of what you're saying indicates you're the one that has not been looking at the universe. Because if you are so sure of this, that somehow your God is hanging out in Montana or around behind Venus, you're imagining a God in every single gap that you can't see. And you're claiming there's proof of it when that's not proof. Do you know what science is? Do you know what science is? It's the actual way that humans have found a way to figure out how reality works. It's a system of rooting out what doesn't work and putting together the theories that fit the facts. It is not mythology. You're trying to promote mythology to understand reality. But that is a load of crap because it doesn't stand up. It doesn't stand up to science.
Man, talk about self-delusion.
Somebody's got some self-delusion going on in there, but probably not the guy you're talking about, the Star Trek atheist.
And these are the people who love to say that Christians are deluded. But Danny is right pretty much about one thing. Most religion is a substitute.
What? He just admitted most religion is a substitute.
Man-made religion tends to be made up to fill a void in the hearts of men and really has no more factual basis than Star Trek.
He just said religion has no more basis than Star Trek. Although I will say Star Trek has one thing going for it. It doesn't claim to be real. Though I myself use it as a religion substitute because I like the philosophy. I would say if there's a series of stories out there that I would say are philosophically good religion, I would give it to Star Trek. I would say science would be how I would understand the reality of things. All right. So what nonsense do you have left for me, since there's not much good to come from this?
Sorry, Danny. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but Star Trek is a substitute for real understanding of the universe.
No, because it's science fiction. It uses the word fiction. It doesn't claim to be real. Sorry, but you don't know what fiction means.
There's only one religion that is not man-made. There's only one God and only one way to know Him, to understand the universe, and that is through Jesus Christ.
I think this guy is either... Excuse me. That could be the best response to him, just another burp. I should have burped louder and said, my response to that is... He's absolutely certain that the one religion he happens to believe in is the one true one. Thank you. I'm going to take your word on that. Yeah, I'm going to take your word on that. He talks about Star Trek as a religion, and he says he knows the one true religion. Well, maybe one day I'll get a Church of Star Trek. That would be something worth aiming towards.
So, Danny, if you want real understanding, toss that Star Trek costume and pick up a Bible.
He probably doesn't actually own a Star Trek costume. I have to interject another little clip here, because it's faster than my original rant, which just goes on and on and on. Wild Bill is assuming that this person owns a Star Trek uniform. Why? I don't know. Although most Star Trek fans do not own Star Trek uniforms, when I stop and think about how many celebrities, like sports stars and musicians get emulated in the way people dressing up like they're part of a sports team when they're not, and dressing up like musicians, then I think to myself, I kind of wish I had a Star Trek uniform when I think about that. And when you look at Wild Bill, and most of all how he's dressed, he's wearing a goddamn cowboy hat. Hey, Wild Bill, why don't you dress a little more dignified? Get rid of that stupid cowboy hat and put on a Star Trek uniform. Or would that be too dignified for you?
And this guy here is saying, put down the Star Trek costume and pick up a Bible. And by the way, the Bible is not a good way to find out about reality. Sorry. It just ain't. Now, for real science, I'd grab one of Stephen Hawking's books for reality. If you want some philosophy, I'd go with Star Trek or George Carlin, But, to each their own. You want to go crazy? You can go crazy. In fact, I would say you are going crazy.
If you agree with this message to Danny, then please consider becoming a monthly donor so that this message can reach more people.
He is a church. He is a church. He just asked for money. He preached about how his one religion is right. Star Trek is just another religion, and all those other religions like Star Trek are just wrong. And he preached to us, and then asked for a donation. Wow. Willie Bill, you are a piece of work.
This is Wild Bill for America. Thank you for watching.
Wild Bill for America. That's actually a lot of space. That's 2 whole continents. I'd actually be honestly surprised if he was actually concerned about the whole United States. I think he's mostly just concerned about his culture. I'd say he's a culture warrior. He's a Bill O'Reilly culture warrior fighting for his... And hey, I think that's his orgasm face right there. He's kind of open bowl. He looks like under. Yeah. Well, give me some money. This is Wild Bill for America.
America bless God again.
America bless God? So maybe he's saying America's above God. You gotta believe in God. But just remember, America's higher than God. And by America, I mean Wild Bill's America. So, Wild Bill, you gave me a lot to think about how much better off we'd be with Star Trek as a religion. Good job, Wild Bill. Good job. Greetings, friends. I am here to bring you the word. In fact, the word of one of our more recently uncovered testaments. Not so long ago it was discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls. I'll bring you our holy book of Genesis, or as it's known in its original Hebrew, Star Trek Enterprise Season 1, where we learn of the great Henry Archer, who was the creator who gave his only son the NX-class starship, the NX-01 Enterprise. Then perhaps we'll move on to the great God-buster, James Tiberius Kirk, whom fought many hostile, powerful, energy-based beings. Or perhaps then we'll look at St. Scotty's Guide to the Enterprise. And then maybe Star Trek II, where Spock gave his life so that we may be forgiven for our sins. And then, on the third sequel, he rose from the grave. Then we'll move into the next testament, where the great Picard will prevent individuals from believing he is a god, for creating religions is generally a bad idea. And he will taketh an arrow through his mechanical heart to avoid that ever happening. And who watches the watchers? Then we'll learn from the great prophet Benjamin Sisko as he deals with holy wars from beyond. Then we'll see what happens if you fail to heed the warnings of Star Trek. You will be condemned. You will be drawn into the abyss by the Janeway to spend 7 years under network-controlled misery for 7 years of suffering and damnation. So come along, friends, and learn from the great holy Star Trek. Hey, but then again, well, maybe I am guilty of explaining the universe with Star Trek, because in with my car manuals, real cars, I couldn't help but stick this in there. It's the Haynes Manual for the USS Enterprise. And on the back, my two favorites. My second favorite, the Enterprise D, right there from Next Generation. Oh, that was a cool starship. And my favorite starship, sure, it's a little less advanced than any of them, or a lot less advanced, the NX-01. The NX-01. Oh, I do enjoy this book. Well, here's something, though. Quantum torpedoes. Here's an interesting concept, and this is completely fictional, but it's based on some, real concepts, made, like, zero-point energy is an actual thing, But anyway, the quantum torpedoes are able to produce an explosive yield of over 50 isotons, which is more than double that of a conventional photon torpedo. They do it by extracting energy from an area of space-time known as the zero-point vacuum. And, the zero-point energy. Experimental work with zero-point energy began in 2236. It works by manipulating space-time to literally create new subatomic particles, a process that releases a vast amounts of energy. In fact, the zero-point energy explosion is basically a tiny version of the Big Bang that created the universe. Well, there you go. Space Anomaly, the Sovereign class Enterprise looks into the time warp, and Picard says, "Let there be light. Make it so." And Commander Worf fires the photon torpedo into the wormhole. It goes back into time, billions and billions of years, and it explodes, birthing the universe. And the all of reality was discovered to be a bootstrap paradox. I don't care for bootstrap paradoxes. I prefer other types of time paradoxes. Anyway, yeah, Star Trek has never made that claim. Alright, so there's never been a claim that Picard has ever created the universe with a quantum torpedo. Nor Sisko, because the Defiant's not in there. But the Defiant also had quantum torpedoes. There were some great stories about the Defiant.